Welcome to Well Played Podcast, the show on all things playful and joyous. Together we are finding joy in the journey of life. Today we have a great guest, Ryan McLane, with us, and we're chatting about infusing joy into the classroom and into that school by sort of shaking up the whole school and kind of what you do like on a day or, I don't know, just trying new stuff. But before we dive into that, Ryan, can you introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, I am an elementary school principal and director of special ed at a small district in rural Ohio, about an hour east of Columbus. This is my eighth year as an administrator. I spent the first 12 years as a high school business and history teacher, coached football and wrestling. My wife and I, we have two daughters. When our second daughter was born, I knew neither one of them had a future in football or wrestling. So that's when I got out of the coaching part of education and started to head down to the administrative path. So I've been doing that. I've been a principal now this is my eighth year. First year at the lower elementary level. My building has about 580 kids, preschool through fourth grade, and I love it. I am never bored.
I imagine. I mean, those kids, uh, I mean, they're cute. They say the darndest things, but at the same time, they like produce. I don't know. There's just such a authenticity to them. They want to learn. They want to soak it all up.
And the biggest thing is, for the most part, they don't hate school yet. And I think it's a big part of my job to make sure that they leave our building not hating school. You know, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade's way too early to be hating school. So that's an important part of my job, is to work with our teachers and to be aware, to try to create a culture and an atmosphere where we want kids wanting to come to school and not getting to that, man, I hate school, I hate going to school. We want that excitement to be there every day.
I love that. I mean, that's the point of kind of the work I try to do as well, is like infuse that joy, infuse that like love of what we're doing. Like you have to do it any which way. I mean, like we as employees have to do it, them as students have to do it. But that doesn't mean we have to just kind of like meander through it. I mean, you really can like take a passionate dive, but you have to kind of light that enthusiasm. And like you said, that is too young of a grade to sort of let that flame die out.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So this is awesome. So let's kind of dive in. Like you as a principal, I think the first time I sort of knew about you was on Twitter through some TLAP chats. And when you were at your old school, I believe, you decided to kind of shake up the whole school a little bit on one particular day. Do you want to kind of walk us through that, the genesis of it? Maybe probably fill in everybody, because I'm sort of filling in blanks in my head.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with Dave Burgess's book, Teach Like a Pirate, the essential question in that book is, if kids didn't have to come to your class, would you be teaching to an empty room? So this was back in 2013. And back then in Ohio, we did our state testing like end of March, early April. And, you know, our teachers are prepping our kids, and we weren't teaching to the test, but we were making sure we were teaching the kids all the things they needed to know so that they would perform well on those tests. And then once that test was done, we had like 5 or 6 weeks of school left, and the teachers all give me that look of like, now what? Like we're done with the year's curriculum because of the state test. We still have, you know, over a month left of school. What are we going to do? So I decided, let's put Dave Burgess's question to the test. What if
Love it.
we literally let kids come into the building, we took attendance, and then we let them go wherever they wanted for an entire day? And when I dropped that bomb on our teachers, because it wasn't, you know, this wasn't I hate to admit it, but this was not a collaborative effort at the very beginning. This was not hey, let's sit down and meet with all the stakeholders and brainstorm. We had a staff meeting. I walked in and I said, hey, this is what we're going to do.
Here's my idea.
Figure it out and let's go. And I think they looked at, and this was the second year I was there, so this was like par for the course. They were used to some of my
They were
crazy.
somewhat used to this.
Yes, they were somewhat used to like the craziness, and the one thing they knew was like, okay, we're doing this. Like he's not like going to change his mind, or he's not just like mad or on some weird mood. Like we're going to do this. So let's figure it
I
out.
love it.
So then it became, and that's how I first got into contact with Dave Burgess. He found out about it. I think I tweeted something out like, "Hey, we're going to put Dave's book to the test, and on this date we're going to have Teach Like a Pirate Day." So he had reached out to me, and he had given me some things to think about. My wife, who's not in education, she had given me some things to think about, because the goal was not to see who was going to have an empty room. The goal was, if everyone stepped up their game and created an unbelievable experience, kids would come to class, even if they didn't have to come to
Sure.
class. So over those few weeks until the big day, I think we had a shared Google spreadsheet or Google Doc or something where teachers would put their experience description on, and everyone could see everyone else's. So like at first, a couple of them might have been a little lame, and then they saw someone's that was like, oh my goodness, that's awesome. I've got to revise mine. So it was like friendly competition. But then it also allowed me to see, okay, this one's weak. No one's going to show up to this one. How can I help this teacher, create a better experience so that kids would want to come? So the only requirement was it had to it had to be aligned with your content area. So if you were a math teacher, it had to be math related, not necessarily seventh grade math standards, but something to do with math. If you taught science, it had to do with science, and so
Sure.
on.
You're
And
not in the fraction unit
it,
having
it,
to do
well,
fractions.
sure, but it wasn't a free for all. It wasn't
I can
teach
do
whatever I
sewing.
wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and some schools have done that, like on a discovery day, and that's great. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with that, but like I really wanted to put the book to the test and tie it into what we were doing instructionally in our school. Of the long term plan was, how can we do this all the time? Like, let's not make school awesome one day a year and have it be boring the other 179. It was, okay, let's do this and let's make it awesome this day, but then how can we do this in September in our regular classroom, October, whatever. So we uh we did all of this, and we created all of these ideas, and then we put it together and we called it a guidebook. So we had every teacher, the period it was available, and a brief description of what was going on. And we printed these out. We handed them out to the kids. At the time, I was a principal of a seventh and eighth grade building, Utica Junior High. And we handed these papers out to, I think we had maybe 280 students in the building. And we gave it to them on, like, I think a Wednesday. And the day was a Friday. And here was my first clue that this was going to be something special. If you're familiar with working with kids, especially seventh and eighth grade kids, you hand them a piece of paper and you say, hey, bring this back to school in 2 days. Like there's zero chance that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be in the locker, the bottom of the backpack. Like there's no way that's going to happen. And I think out of 280 kids, like I'm not exaggerating, 2 kids lost theirs. So
Nice.
everyone was looking at it at lunch. Like lunch was almost silent that day. They're all looking through it and they're talking about where you're going to go. And I'm like, okay, this might work. This might happen. So the day of the event, Teach Like a Pirate Day, kids came to homeroom. They went to attendance, or went to homeroom for attendance. And then I got on the PA and I said, you may go to your first experience. And our bell schedule was the same. It was the normal period length. We had the same number of periods. The only thing the kids had to do was go to their normal lunch. Other than that, they could go anywhere they wanted. They just couldn't repeat it. They couldn't go to the same thing more than once. And our biggest problem that day was kids were literally running in the hallway to get to the next class. It was
All right.
crazy. Like they were dead on sprinting to get to the next class. The science experiments, the English teacher did a Willy Wonka chocolate factory like marketing activity. It was unbelievable. Our attendance rate that day was like 99.8%. This was like the third week of May on a Friday, when typically discipline's at its highest, because maybe
Everything's kind of done.
teaching
Yeah.
is at its lowest because you're almost at the end of the year. And it was the most unbelievable experience I've been a part of as an educator. After that, I left districts. I went to another district, a fifth and sixth grade building. We did it there for the next 5 years. Dave Burgess actually flew in to see it one year, and now I'm interested to see how we're gonna do it at West Muskingum Elementary this year, because it was unreal. The kids were excited, the parents were excited, the teachers were excited and exhausted once it was over, but it was great for everyone.
I mean, hearing you talk, I can't imagine that anybody listening to this podcast right now can't feel like just it's palpable, like your enthusiasm for the experience that was created for kind of all the stakeholders. I mean, you're talking about the teachers getting to sort of try something new, shake up that, and then see the response from those kids that like they're banging down that door to get in. They're sad that I'm telling them the experience is over, and then you as the principal to see students like low discipline issues, to see students excited to be there, to see students organized to make sure they get there on time, see them break a
We
few.
we we didn't have our first discipline issue until I think like the fourth or fifth year we did it. And it had nothing to do with Teach Like a Pirate Day. Like it was a discipline issue that would have happened any other day of the year. It had nothing to do with the uh, organized chaos that was going on. But the kids are too busy learning. They're too busy engaged. Uh, to figure out, how can I goof around? How can I get in trouble? How can I mess with this teacher? How can I mess with that kid? They were all in on whatever it was that they were learning, because one, they had a little bit of choice in the matter. Uh, that first year we did it, I want to say we had like, I don't know, 12. It was a smaller school. We had like 12 to 14 experiences going on at one time. So
So
when you
I
were picking your six for the day, and it wasn't signups, it was literally first come, first serve, but you were picking the six you wanted to go to. So you had a vested interest of, I'm not going to goof around because I want to go to this one. I'm
sure.
interested in it.
So I have a few follow-up questions for really the entire audience that can't ask these questions, but I know they're probably rolling around in their heads. One, you said they couldn't repeat the same experience, but if you had a kid that like super loved fill in the blank, you know, super loved math, super loved social studies, could they like, all right, so I did math with teacher one. Can I like go to math with teacher two and like
Absolutely.
math
Yep.
with teacher three and math with teacher four and
Absolutely.
like half my day was filled up with math?
Absolutely. And we found that to happen a lot with the sciences, which is great, because that tends to be one of those classes that kids struggle with, or it's not their
Sure.
favorite class. But when it was engaging and it was something a little out of the ordinary, but there was still a learning target. Again, it was, what are we going to accomplish educationally, was still at the heart of it. All 6 years we did this. Um, yeah, it was great. And Big Walnut, was the school I went to, was a much bigger school. It was two grades, and we had about 600 kids in the two grades. I want to say we had like 30 some teachers. So there were a lot of opportunities, a lot of choices, and it was cool to see. And I got to see this with my daughter. Kids didn't necessarily go around with their friends. Like it was, you know, normally I hang out with my friends, but if I'm interested in something, I'm going to fly solo and I'm going to go check out this experience.
Nice.
That meant a lot to me. That was neat to see.
That's pretty cool. Another like sort of probing question here is do you think this experience could be done on a smaller scale? Like I'm picturing like people that work on teams. You know, if you're like the fifth grade team and you can't convince your principal, you can't convince the whole school to do this. You know, like do you think one of your teams, like if just you're at your new school, the third grade team wants to do this Teach Like a Pirate Day and have kids choose between those three teachers or whatever, do you think it would work, or was there something about it being the whole school? Was something about the size of choice? You know, you have far more than just three classes to choose from.
No, I think you could absolutely do it. And when I talk to people that are interested in it, excuse me, oftentimes I'm talking with teachers that they're like, there's no way my principal is going to go for this, but I think my team would be on board with this. How could we do this? And you could either schedule it, and that makes it a little less chaotic. You can have signups, and here's what my experience is going to be, here's what yours, here's what hers is going to be, and you could sign up ahead of time and work it for a block or whatever, or you could do it for half a day or a whole day. Definitely, you could do it on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, I think some of the listeners aren't in your position that can kind of just command the ship and say we're doing this. And while I think it sounds fantastic to do, I mean, this is one of the reasons I asked you. I just remembered from years ago this awesome day. Um, I think some of us that would want to put this into action are on smaller teams that we might be able to convince like the four others on the team or three others on the team, but whole school might be a little tough sell at try one.
So for those that are listening, Michael was a part of our first Teach Like a Pirate Day back in 2013. So as the principal, I actually taught a couple experiences, and what I did was I did mystery Skype. So if you're unfamiliar with that, you hook up with an educator ahead of time somewhere in another state, another country, and their class via Skype and our class ask each other yes and no questions to try to determine the location that their school's in, and vice versa. So I can remember our class, Michael was up to a little bit of shenanigans. So he had on his wall that looked like they forgot to take it down, but it was planted. They had a flag of a foreign country. So our kids noticed that, and they're like, "Oh, look, they've got the flag of," and I can't
I
remember
think it was
what it
England.
was. Yeah, so they were like, they're not even in the United States; they're in England. So that our kids are asking, and I know where Michael is, and I'm like, oh man, that was so dirty. And our kids are asking these questions, and they're like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And someone finally said, that's a trick. They're not. That's not their flag. So it was great to see it actually be a part of it. But Michael was a part of the first Teach Like a Pirate Day.
It was fun to be part of that. Those mystery Skypes are great for anybody that hasn't done one yet. Just try to hook up with somebody to do that. It is so great. Put it out on Twitter. If you hashtag mystery Skype, somebody's gonna adopt your classroom for that time. Uh, my other question for you is, you've talked a lot about from the student's perspective, and you sort of touched upon the teacher's perspective in terms of building up to it. That spreadsheet where you can kind of see, oh, they're gonna do this. Maybe I should up mine a little bit. What was the feedback on the other side of it, like from the teachers? So like the day's done. Whew, I'm tired, but what am I saying to you when I see you in the hall?
So for the most part, and I would say like 98% of the staff.
So that's a total win. I mean, even if we can say like
Yes,
there's a
you're
few.
never going to get 100%. I mean,
Yep.
the Pope doesn't have 100% approval rating, so
Yep.
you're not going to get everyone. 98% of the staff was like, this was awesome. It is. I think it's as much emotionally exhausting as it is physically exhausting. We've done it on different days of the week. We've done it on a Friday. We've done it on a Thursday. I think one year we might have done it on a Monday. And I really recommend, if you're going to do this on a pretty large scale, do it on a Friday. Because I remember when we did it on a Thursday, again, we had that highest of highs, and it was like, oh man, we got to come back to school tomorrow. And then it's like, how do you finish out that week? I mean, you were just like, you had Teach Like a Pirate Day on Thursday. How do you match or top that on a Friday in May? So I would recommend the first time you do it on a Friday, because it is cool and you're going to want to reflect. And I remember the first year we did it, it was a Friday, and went home, and just that weekend, it was like we won the Super Bowl, because a lot of people are like, this is going to be a disaster. You're going to let 280 kids run free. You are asking for a discipline nightmare. You are asking for trouble. It is going to be a disaster. And the opposite happened. It was kids that routinely didn't want to come to school not only came to school, but then they're running to science class. And it's
Hmm.
like, I caught you hiding out in the bathroom cutting science class 2 weeks ago, and now you're going to two science classes. And he was like, it's stuff I want to learn. It was fun. I learned and I had fun. And it was like, this is what it's got to be. And again, it's not about making school awesome one day a year. And it's not realistic to do 180 days a year. I'm a realist. But as we've done this for 6 years, I'll walk into a class and it might be September or it might be November, and I'm like, wow, that would have been a Teach Like a Pirate Day activity 5 years ago, and now it's a part of this teacher's regular routine. And that's what it's all about. It's like building up that arsenal of lessons of, and I would try to encourage teachers, don't do the same one every year. Like, create something so that you can use it next year, and then next year when we do Teach Like a Pirate Day, create something different. So then next year, now you got two cool lessons, two cool experiences in the school year. By the time you're halfway through your career, you've got 10 to 15 pretty cool things for kids to be looking forward to. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember when I first read Teach Like a Pirate, it was that line about like, if teachers didn't have to, or if students didn't have to come, would they come? And kind of if kids had to pay to like be in your seat, like if you could sell tickets, like would anybody buy them? Even if it was like a quarter, like would somebody pay a quarter to do this activity? And soon after that, I mean, I took your exact mindset. Like, there's no way I can have 180 awesome lessons, perfect, whatever. Just the sheer planning that's involved, the sheer setup that most of those kind of days take. I don't have enough prep in the day to like make those photocopies or go to the store and buy that stuff or whatever the case may be. But the goal was, why can't I like make as many as I can? And if this year I make 10, if I come out with like 10 this year, sell tickets, lessons, great. And then next year, don't just do those 10. Do those 10, but then like try to push yourself. Like, can I make 10 more? Well, now, like, geez, that's 20 days out of 180 school days that are like fantastic. And then you said you've been doing this 5, 6 years. If a teacher had been really teaching the same stuff and trying to like challenge themselves 10 new of those per year, they'd be like approaching like six.
Sure.
Yeah, they're like a third of the way all Teach Like a Pirate's lessons if they really invested that. And I just think as teachers, like investing in your class like that, investing in those moments in this moment and as well like future moments, because like we're a cyclical job. Like it's going to come up again. I'm going to teach the Romans again. I've taught them the last 11 years. I'm going to teach them the next 11 years. If I stay in this position, they're not going away. So designing a Teach Like a Pirate Rome activity is worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, I just really, I think that's a really powerful message to get out there, and hearing like how your teachers did it, hearing how your students loved it. Uh, I just hope that really inspires some others to like, you don't have to be like crazy awesome every day, all the time. Like, we don't live in that world, and that's almost an impossibility to like achieve. But
Well,
but
and what was nice was it became a thing, like Teach Like a Pirate Day. As kids came to our school from the elementaries, like they didn't understand what it was, but they knew it was a thing. And the older kids' parents would tell the younger kids' parents, "Oh, it's the most amazing day." We had parents actually come and check it out and participate. I had a mom say, "Can I come?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, I'm not kidding." And I said, "I hope you're not. Yeah, come
yeah,
on.
like yeah, we've
You can be the
decided.
student." And we had high school kids that were trying to. Our school was on the same campus as the high school. We had high school kids that were trying to cut high school classes so that they could participate in the intermediate school Teach Like a Pirate Day. I mean, it became a big thing. We had local businesses that would partner with us and donate things to help. Our art teacher did some experience where Wendy's, the like salad containers, they donated a couple hundred salad containers for the art project on Teach Like a Pirate Day. We had a hardware store that donated like paver bricks because we had a teacher where the kids were going to paint their own paver bricks, and then that was going to line the walkway that entered the school, and that's still there. So it became a really big community thing, which was really nice.
That's fantastic. I mean, I love that kind of like, now it's like woven into the community, right? Like this is where that positive can beget positive. Like what started off as a small idea in a staff meeting where they they knew you weren't kidding that they were going to do this, but where they ended up taking it, where it went from school to school, to now like your third school. That's I mean that's a legacy, Ryan. I mean that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, and to see how many educators and schools really around the world that have tried it or done a version of it was really cool to see. And I've always told people I've got resources on the internet that kind of help you and some samples of the the experiences, the guidebooks that we've handed out to kids, but always willing to help people. Like, hey, if you're going to try this, don't forget about these things, because it's never been about me. It's been about how can we make school a place that kids want to come to. And again, it was my dad was a teacher. I don't know that I ever hated school, but I didn't love school, and I got to the point where I was playing the game of school, not really well, but I was getting by. And now that I'm in a position that if I can hold off on that hatred of school atmosphere, I want to do everything I can to help with that.
I mean that is I mean that's a fantastic goal, and I would say that kind of dovetails into like my work of like what I'm trying to like get other teachers to see is like playful learning doesn't mean that there's not learning, right? Like that teach like a pirate day, like you said, you still aligned it to a target. Like you still were trying to teach one particular skill, one particular action, one particular thing. So why can't we have more than one day of it? Like, so I don't know. I love it, but I
Well,
can't.
you're big on gamification. That's your thing, right?
Yes, that's like my main thing, but like what that all involves, what that all entails is truly just like building an experience for students. That's what it is.
So, so here was my like. I had joked with you before we got on air that I'm probably the least qualified person to be on your podcast about gamification, because I didn't do it as a teacher. I've had, I think, one teacher in my 8 years as a principal that's really tried to harness in the gamification idea. And it's not because I don't believe in it. I don't know enough about it, and I
Sure.
haven't had very many teachers who want to do it. But uh, probably about 2 months ago, it was really like that aha moment. So we've got uh, this thing called Top Golf that just opened up near where we live.
Hmm.
If you're not familiar with it, it's like this high tech driving range where the golf balls have computer chips in it, and there's these lighted targets. I mean, it's like a sci-fi driving range. And I love golf. I'm not the greatest. My wife plays golf, and we've got two daughters, and it is like pulling teeth to get them to play golf. And my youngest actually has a phenomenal golf swing. She's 9. She can hit a ball, but she wants nothing to do with golf. Like, it is, hey, come on, we live across the street from a golf course, and it'll be the summer. Hey, let's go play golf. Nah, I don't want to play golf. And it's like, so we go to Top Golf when it opens up like 2 months ago, and they are both hooked. They
Yep.
they ask me, when can we come back? I'm like, what do you mean when can we? This is fun because you're scoring points, and it was the whole gamification
Yep.
of
That
golf
interaction.
that
Yep. That,
I bet in the past 2 months we've been there 8 times, and it's all been, hey, when are we going to Top Golf? Can we go to Top Golf? Can we go? And that was my aha moment of, yeah, I see why teachers want to do this, because if they can gamify their classroom and get kids hooked on math or social studies or whatever because they've gamified it, I get it, and more power to them if they can do it.
yeah. I will say, like, doubling back to your comment about you being like the least qualified to be on my show, though. Right when you said that, though, I said, no, like, your Teach Like a Pirate Day really is gamification. I mean, like, in some level, it is building an experience, like, truly thinking about, I mean, in gamer terms, we talk about the student being the user. So, like, thinking about an experience from the user's perspective, like, how are they going to feel the moment they walk in that door? Are they going to be empowered? Are they going to be excited? How are they going to feel when they walk into that classroom? What are they going to get in that classroom? And from the teacher's design point to think same thing, like I got students coming in, what are they going to learn? How are they going to feel? Like all of these touch points is gamification. It is powerful design pedagogy, which is just what I get all geeked out about in terms of gamification and like teaching teachers how to embed that pedagogy. But I can't believe it, Ryan. Like we are at the end of our time already. It just zooms by. And so we need to now like do reflection time. I got a quote for the two of us that I think works well with today. And I'm curious, are you ready to have that quote tossed your way?
I'm ready because this was not preempted. I have no idea what the quote's going to be.
I love it. So here it is. This is just sort of quote on the internet. It's unknown who the author is. To find joy in work is to discover the fountain of youth.
Oh, absolutely. So as much as I talk about we want kids to want to come to school, it's important for me to create an environment where my staff wants to come to school, where I want to come to school, and it's because of that. If I'm finding joy in what I'm doing, I don't feel like I've been doing this for 20 years now. I don't feel like an old grizzled veteran. I think I found that fountain of youth, as you say, to where I've got that energy of a 22, 24-year-old teacher. I think that joy in what you're doing is so important.
Yeah, so for me, like I'm going to take the quote and I'm going to sort of say, finding that joy in the work is to discover the fountain of youth. I'm going to relate it to the teachers truly are being childlike when they get out of their like uber professionalism of like I've done this unit a lot, or the book says, or the scope and sequence, or our district team tells us we need to do this. And for that moment that they choose to explore their passion woven into their profession, and they're no longer the expert, they're the explorer. And the students then kind of, if I was to expand this analogy, kind of become the crew members. And I think it just sort of changes everyone's feel. Like there's just this energy, and that's when those teachers become sort of more youthful. And I think that's when the students and the teachers then gel a little more, because all of a sudden they're all explorers. No one's that sort of master just disseminating information. The master's sort of saying, I'm trying something wickedly new. Let's all do this together. Let's all explore together. I love it.
Sounds good, man.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for being on the show. Everyone, you should check out Ryan on Twitter. His Twitter handle is at McLane_Ryan. And he also wrote a book. We didn't even touch upon that. It's Your School Rocks. So tell people, check that one out. And, just really want to thank you for coming on here and just talking so passionately about, this amazing Teach Like a Pirate Day, Ryan.
Well, thanks for having me. It was good seeing you again, and look forward to connecting with anyone that wants any follow-up on this.
Yeah, so, I'm sure just tweet Ryan and he'll get back to you. It's excellent. I hope some of you out there try it again. And, if you do, please share that with us. As always, if you want to comment on this episode, go to my YouTube channel, and there's a video of this chat, and, fire in your sort of question there or comment there. It's a great place to connect. As always, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. It's truly an honor having you guys. Enjoy your week and play on.